All right, Night Owl, settle in, settle in. We're going back to a time when cable TV was still the Wild West, when you could stumble across absolute cinematic chaos at 1 a.m. on a Friday or Saturday. Or would that have been a Saturday or a Sunday? Either way, picture this. It's 1989. Man, you're 14. You're supposed to be dead asleep, but you've mastered the art of silent channel surfing. You land on USA Network, and there's Rhonda Shear in that iconic low-cut dress, making jokes about a movie so bad it's beautiful. Or hey, maybe it's Gilbert Gottfried shrieking his way through commercial breaks like a caffeinated parrot in the back or in the trunk of a white limo. This is USA Up All Night, and it was a cultural phenomenon that fostered an entire generation's relationship with B-movies. From 1989 to 1988, Friday and Saturday nights belonged to Rhonda and Gilbert, and us. And they introduced us to films that rarely ever saw the inside of a theater, but somehow became more memorable than most blockbusters we saw growing up. Tonight we're counting down 15 movies that either graced those sacred late-night airwaves or captured that exact same campy energy. These are as much time capsules of a wilder time as they are horror movies. They're a time when low budgets meant high creativity, and when TV hosts could make a Z-grade slasher feel like appointment viewing you couldn't miss. So grab your Capri Suns and Slim Jims, turn down the volume so you don't wake the parents, and let's dive into the beautiful madness that was USA Up All Night.
Hello, I'm Gilbert Gottfried, but you knew that. Anyway, I'm the last fertile man in the world.
Hell. Sam Hell.
Never heard of you.
We're going to Frogtown.
All right, we're going to kick it off with the movie that perfectly embodies the "what the hell am I watching" experience that defined USA Up All Night. It's Hell Comes to Frogtown, starring Roddy Piper. It's exactly the kind of post-apocalyptic insanity that could only exist in the late 80s. Nuclear war has left most men sterile, so Piper's character, Sam Hell, the Hell in Hell Comes to Frogtown, who's still fertile, gets recruited to rescue virgin women from mutant frogs. And yeah, you heard that right. Mutant frogs and virgins. The movie takes itself completely seriously, which makes it even more hilarious. Piper delivers every line like he's performing Shakespeare, even when he's explaining why he needs to mate with loads of ladies to save humanity. The frog makeup and costumes are wonderfully ridiculous. Honestly, they're not bad. These aren't scary monsters. They're clearly actors in rubber suits that probably cost about $50 each. But there's something awesome about the low-budget creativity. Someone looked at this tiny budget and said, you know what, man? Frog people, I can do this. And that spirit is through all of these entries.
Previously on Up All Night.
I'm going to enjoy splattering you.
Hostile. Very hostile. Got a great set.
Yeah, I know.
Man, God bless America and God bless Roddy Piper. Next is Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers. This is 1988. Now here's the title that perfectly encapsulates the USA Up All Night experience. You see that in the TV guide. Yeah, we had to actually plan our viewing back then, and you're immediately intrigued and immediately horrified. The Fred Olen Ray masterpiece is everything late night cable horror should be. Man, it's got Linnea Quigley, who was basically the Scream Queen patron saint of Up All Night. You barely saw a movie without her in it. It's got chainsaws, which were always a ratings winner, and it's got that perfect blend of horror and comedy that made you unsure whether you were supposed to be scared or laughing. And to be fair, it was laughing. The beauty of movies like this on USA Up All Night was the editing. The censors had to work overtime to make this even remotely broadcastable, but that made it way funnier. You'd watch these heavily edited versions and your imagination would just fill in the gaps, often creating something much more outrageous than was actually filmed, although not in this case.
Oh, as a new security system, completely mobile, user-friendly.
If you were a mall rat in the 80s, and let's be honest, 100% we all were, Shopping Mall was basically a documentary about your worst nightmares. The premise is pure 80s gold. Teenagers decide to party after hours in the mall because apparently that's what passed for a wild Friday night. It wasn't. But then the security robots malfunction after a lightning storm and start hunting them down with laser beams. And to be honest, that happened all the time in the 80s. It's like someone took every fear about technology, mixed it with slasher movie tropes, and set it all in the most quintessentially 80s location possible, the suburban mall. The mall in this movie is a character itself. Those wide corridors, the neon signs, the mannequins that look creepier than the actual monsters. It's like a time capsule of American 80s awesomeness. Watching it on late night TV in your parents' living room, you could almost smell the orange Julius and hear the echo of your own footsteps in those same corridors. This was great.
Every year, the finalists for the Miss Cheerleader USA contest travel to this secluded camp.
The late 80s were a golden age for movies that combined two completely different genres and somehow made it work. Cheerleader camp is what happens when you take a slasher movie and a teen sex comedy and you throw them in a blender. You're going to serve that with a side of wild 80s excess. The plot is basically a Friday the 13th Bring It On mashup with more feathered hair and crazy synth music. You take a bunch of cheerleaders and you're going to send them to camp, and someone starts picking them off one by one. It's formulaic, but formula can be super comforting when you're dealing with insomnia and leftover Totino's pizza rolls. You're just looking to wind down on a wild Saturday, man. The movie itself is a perfect example of how low-budget horror could be genuinely entertaining without being genuinely scary. It's not trying to give you nightmares, it's trying to give you a good time. Those deadly pom-poms had us all second-guessing the halftime routines at school.
Hidden inside the house at 21 Shady Lane Avenue is a black and white TV with the power to turn itself.
In the late 80s, everyone had that one TV in their house that acted weird, and maybe it picked up signals from weird channels, or maybe it turned on or off by itself, and maybe it made strange noises during Riptide or Manimal. The Video Dead took that universal experience and turned it into a horror movie premise. The concept is beautifully simple. Look, a haunted TV that spits out zombies. That's it. No complicated mythology, no ancient curse, just good old-fashioned supernatural weirdness. It's the kind of high-concept, low-budget filmmaking that USA Up All Night championed. The zombies in this movie are wonderfully bizarre. They're not your standard flesh-eating ghouls. They're more like confused, violent intruders who happen to be dead. They break into houses, look, they rearrange furniture, and generally make nuisances of themselves. It's like a home invasion movie where the invaders are decomposing and super annoying, at best.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another installment of USA Up All Night. The film is Sorority Babes in the SLIMEBALL BOWL-O-RAMA.
This is awesome. This is number 10. Sorority Babes in the SLIMEBALL BOWL-O-RAMA, 1988. This title alone is a work of art. I mean, seriously, someone needs to frame it and hang it in the Museum of American 80s Cinema. It tells you everything you need to know about the movie in 7 words. Or is that 6? I don't know. Somehow it makes you want to watch it more and harder. This is peak USA Up All Night material. It's got everything. Sorority girls, bad boys, a bowling alley, and a demonic imp that grants wishes. It's like someone took every B-movie trope from the 80s, stuffed them into a blender again, and this time threw in a disco ball. Created what's essentially a supernatural heist movie, making out with a teen sex comedy and groping a monster movie on the side.
You see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Now this is where we start getting into the big leagues. Return of the Living Dead. Actually, it had a budget, had professional actors, and it had a killer soundtrack. But it still had that punk rock anti-establishment attitude that made it perfect for USA Up All Night. This movie changed everything about zombie films. Forget the slow, shambling Romero zombies. These guys could run. They could think. They could specifically crave brains. It was faster, funnier, and more irreverent than anything that had come before. The famous graveyard scene with Linnea Quigley again, and you know the scene I'm talking about, was the stuff cable TV legend, and it's the kind of scene that the VHS tape was always a little funky around from being paused and rewound so many times. The soundtrack was another huge part of its appeal. This wasn't just background music, man. It was a carefully curated collection of punk and new wave tracks that made the movie feel like an extended music video. For a generation that was discovering alternative music through late night TV, this was like getting a mixtape from your coolest friend. or not.
I got an idea. Let's do a ritual.
Man, after Gremlins became a massive hit, everyone wanted their own little monster movie. And Ghoulies was the most shameless of these knockoffs. And somehow that shamelessness made it awesome. The poster for this movie with the ghoulie popping out of the toilet was probably seen by more people than actually watched this exact film. It was the kind of image that burned itself into your brain, especially if you were a kid sneaking peeks at the horror section of the video store. The ghoulies themselves are wonderfully bizarre creatures. They're not quite gremlins, and they're not quite goblins, but something uniquely their own. They're mischievous rather than truly evil, more like supernatural practical jokers than actual monsters.
A full moon. A spooky, deserted mansion.
Halloween party in an abandoned funeral home. What could possibly go wrong? Night of the Demons took this simple premise and turned it into one of the most memorable horror movies of the late 80s, specifically 88. This movie has everything. Teenagers making bad decisions, supernatural possession, amazing practical effects, and Amelia Kincaid giving one of the most committed performances in B-movie history as the demon Angela. Look, I believe. Angela as the Demon Queen became an icon of late-night cable horror. She's scary, she's sexy, she's completely unhinged, and she's having the time of her life. That combination of danger and fun was what made USA Up All Night so addictive for all of us.
Wow! Later on, we'll be meeting some of Troma's stars, but right now, here's Class of Nuke High.
Troma films were the perfect fit for USA Up All Night. They were too weird for mainstream theaters. They were too outrageous for basic cable, but they were just right for late-night viewers who had already accepted that normal rules didn't apply after midnight. And they 100% did not. You know that. The movie is peak nuclear paranoia filtered through a juvenile delinquent lens. Nuclear waste creates mutant high school students, and somehow that's not even the weirdest part of the plot. It comes out as social commentary wrapped in a rubber monster suit and covered in fake blood, and uses just an insane amount of male makeup for some reason. What I loved about watching Troma films on Up All Night was how they made you feel like you were part of some underground resistance movement. These were movies that played at the theater. They were guerrilla cinema, sneaking subversive images into cable television programming late at night. You were someone different after viewing Troma tropes. You knew things your classmates didn't. It was like you were living a double life. It's a ridiculous life, but it's a double life. Look, Slumber Party Massacre. We've totally covered this before, but it fits here and it was here. Here's a movie that perfectly embodies the contradictions of 80s slasher films. It was written by Rita Mae Brown as a parody of the genre, but it was marketed as a straight exploitation film. The result is something that works on multiple levels, which is why it fits in so many lists. You can watch it as a slasher movie, or you could watch it as a critique of slasher movies. But either way, man, it was a slasher. This was also classic USA Up All Night, the way it played with audience expectations. You think you're watching a standard slasher movie, but the script is constantly subverting the typical tropes. The final girl is not a virgin. Sam Hell would not want her. The killer isn't some supernatural force, and the violence is portrayed as genuinely disturbing rather than celebratory. The movie also has this amazing sense of place. Like the suburban house feels real, like it's been lived in, like an actual family home rather than a movie set. That realism makes the horror more effective because it's happening in a space that looks super familiar, like somewhere you or your best friend might actually live.
You, my nephews, must construct shita from the body parts of many immoral girls.
This is a favorite of mine as well, Blood Diner, 1987. This is what happens when you take every taboo in American society and turn them into a horror comedy about a restaurant. It's gross. Look, it's funny. It's deeply disturbing. And it's absolutely unforgettable. The movie pushes boundaries that most films wouldn't even acknowledge exist. It's about two brothers who run a vegetarian restaurant that serves human meat to resurrect an ancient goddess. It's hard to even put that all together. It's the kind of premise that could only exist in the straight-to-video market of the 1980s. This is another subversive movie that made you feel like you tapped into something your friends would never see. The practical effects in this movie are absolutely insane. The filmmakers had no money, But man, did they have unlimited imagination. And they used every trick in the book to create some of the most memorable gore scenes in horror cinema. It is disgusting, but it's also kind of beautiful in its commitment to absolute madness.
David, are you here? Can you hear me?
1986 Witchboard was one of the more serious horror films that found its way onto USA Up All Night. And that seriousness made it stand out from the usual camp offerings they would throw at you. You can tell because people drank wine. The Ouija board is the perfect horror movie prop. It's something that actually exists, that people actually use, and that has genuine cultural weight. The movie taps into real anxieties about something like a Ouija board that in the 80s most kids used at one point or another, or heard of people using. It was pretty popular back then and made its appearance in a lot of horror movies. What made this work on late night cable was how it built tension slowly. In a world of fast-paced slashers and gore films, Witchboard took its time to develop atmosphere and character. That patience was rewarded with genuine scares rather than just shock value.
What Mrs. Henshaw is going to do now? Gonna need...
Killer Party, or Killer Party, from 1986, is one of those movies that time forgot, but it perfectly encapsulates everything that made 80s horror special. It's got college kids, hazing rituals, demon possession, and one of the most bizarre opening sequences in cinema history. The movie starts with a fake movie trailer, then reveals that the trailer is actually a music video, and then reveals that the music video is actually a dream sequence. It's like narrative inception, and it sets the tone for a movie that's constantly playing with audience expectations and maybe lets them down more than it intended to. What made this work on USA Up All Night was how it balanced multiple genres. It's a slasher movie, but it's also a college comedy, but it's also a supernatural thriller. And that genre hopping kept viewers engaged because you never knew what was coming next. And after about 20 minutes, man, you really didn't care.
Meet little Melvin. He's a 90-pound weakling.
Honestly, the king of late-night cable horror, this movie that defined everything USA Up All Night represented, and it's the Toxic Avenger. Man, it's more than just a movie, right? It's a cinematic 1 a.m. movement that proved there was an audience for weird, subversive, completely unhinged cinema. The origin story is chef's kiss perfect. Melvin the janitor gets flown into a vat of toxic waste and emerges ultimately as a superhero of sorts. It's the American dream filtered through a funhouse mirror at best, that anyone can become special, even if quote-unquote special means hideous mutant vigilante in a disintegrated tutu. What made this wildly perfect for USA Up All Night was how it celebrated everything that mainstream cinema rejected. It's incredibly gross, it's weird, it's politically incorrect, and it's completely sincere about all of it. Lloyd Kaufman and the Troma team created something that was punk rock in the truest sense. It rejected everything that was supposed to be important and created its own value system. And again, as with any punk rock in the 80s, a lot of dudes had an entire face of Pat Benatar makeup, and I never really saw that in real life. USA Up All Night wasn't just a TV show, it was a cultural institution that opened its doors late at night. It proved that there was an audience for weird, wonderful, completely unhinged cinema, and it celebrated movies that would never play at the local theaters, but somehow became more memorable than most of the blockbusters of its day. Definitely more formative. Rhonda, Shear, and Gilbert Gottfried weren't only late-night hosts, they were curators of chaos. They were guides through a landscape of beautiful madness, and they understood that sometimes the best entertainment comes from the margins, from the places where normal rules don't apply, and it's likely they feel most comfortable there as well. So the next time you're up late and you're scrolling through endless streaming options, remember what it was like when weird was celebrated, when low budgets meant high creativity, and when the best entertainment came from the places you least expected it, and you'd have to be there when it was offered, not when you were bored after lunch on a lazy Sunday. If you remember staying up late watching these movies, hit the comments and let me know which one was your favorite. And if you discovered something new on this list, go find it and watch it, man. These movies are waiting for you, just like they were waiting for all of us those years ago. keep watching the weird stuff, keep celebrating the margins and the movies and the people. Rest in power, Gilbert. And as always, stay cool.